Have you ever been to Florida? Well, if you were planning your next getaway there, this might make you reconsider. These creepy abandoned places still holding ghosts will make you cancel that flight you got booked. The old Chattahoochee State Hospital. Patients swore they saw faceless figures crawling along the walls at night. Nurses whispered of children crying in empty wards. And even decades after the hospital's closure, trespassers have come out pale, shaken, and swearing they heard voices in the halls. The Chattahoochee State Hospital, also known as Florida State Hospital, was once considered progressive when it opened in the 19th century, but by the 20th century, it gained a reputation as one of the darkest psychiatric facilities in the South. Reports surfaced of overcrowding so severe that patients were crammed into filthy rooms, chained to beds, or locked away in padded cells. Electroshock therapy and lobotomies were used regularly. Thousands of patients lived, and many passed away inside its walls. When parts of the hospital were finally shut down, the silence was worse than the chaos. Paranormal investigators say the atmosphere is crushing, like the building itself wants you gone. Cold spots move through the halls, even in the Florida heat, and voices whisper help and leave on EVP recordings. The underground tunnels, once used to discreetly transport patients, are considered the most terrifying. People who step inside describe overwhelming nausea, headaches, and in some cases, scratches appearing on their skin. Former staff have admitted that they themselves refuse to enter certain wards alone, even in broad daylight. Shadowy figures crossing hallways, objects moving on their own, and the constant feeling of being followed are so common that even skeptics walk out uneasy. Would you visit this place? Let me know. The Biltmore Hotel in Coral Gables. Now, firearm explosives rang out on the 13th floor of the Biltmore Hotel in 1929, and a mobster named Thomas Fatty Walsh ran out on the expensive carpet. Ever since, guests claim his ghost never left. Doors slam with no explanation, glasses clink in empty bars, and his shadowy figure has been seen in mirrors. The Biltmore wasn't just a hotel for Florida's elite. During World War II, it was converted into a military hospital. The luxurious ballrooms turned into operating rooms where young soldiers passed away on red liquid-stained floors. Now, after the war, the Biltmore went through years of abandonment. By the 1960s and 70s, its windows were shattered, the once grand lobby sat rotting, and graffiti marked the walls. But visitors claim the glamour hadn't faded entirely because the ghosts kept the hotel alive. Those who entered illegally during its abandoned years described chandeliers swaying violently despite still air, stretchers rolling across dark hallways, and even phantom footsteps echoing down marble staircases. The sounds, of firearms going off are believed to be the echoes of Walsh's assassination, and they were reported so often that even local police stopped investigating. Some said the elevators would move on their own, opening to reveal no one, but reeking of cigar smoke, which was Walsh's signature scent. Now, when the Biltmore was eventually restored and reopened, the hauntings actually continued. Guests still check out early, saying they can't shake the feeling of being watched. Staff members admit that some rooms are harder to rent than others because of how often guests complain about seeing figures standing at the edge of the bed. That's terrifying. The Devil's School in Jacksonville. Now, they call it the Devil's School for a reason. Teens dared each other to break inside only to come running out screaming. Stories spread of a headless janitor who still roams the halls, children's screams echoing from the burned out basement, and satanic rituals performed inside the gymnasium. The real name of the school was Annie Lytle Elementary, built in 1917. Now, when it first opened, it was a proud, grand building with arched windows and a reputation as one of Jacksonville's most impressive schools. But by the 1960s, it had fallen into disrepair. Now, the neighborhood deteriorated, attendance dropped, and eventually the school was just shuttered. Now, once the children were gone, that's when the legends began. Locals whispered about satanic cults meeting there, and graffiti of, pentagrams and strange symbols appeared overnight. Homeless squatters claimed they were chased out by unseen forces. Fires broke out inside with no explanation at all, leading some to believe the building itself was just cursed. Paranormal investigators captured EVP recordings of children's laughter and cries for help despite the building being empty for decades. Urban explorers describe a sense of just suffocation the moment they step inside. Now, the windows are shattered, trees grow through cracks in the roof, and the smell of mold mixes with something more metallic, something like dried red liquid. Now, cameras malfunction regularly, batteries drain instantly, and even seasoned ghost hunters refuse to enter the basement, where the atmosphere is said to be just completely unbearable. Now, some say the spirits are the children who once studied there, trapped by tragedy. Others insist something darker moved in, maybe after their abandonment. Either way, the Devil's School has earned its reputation, clearly, as one of Florida's most haunted ruins. The Dozier School for Boys. Now, few abandoned places in Florida carry a history as horrifying as the Dozier School for Boys. Now, survivors describe it as a nightmare of attacks, torment, and demise. And when the truth was uncovered, investigators found nearly 100 bodies buried in hidden graves there. The school operated for more than 100 years in Marianna, Florida. It was actually meant to be a reform school, a place where troubled boys could be rehabilitated. Instead, it became infamous for brutal, attacks, forced labor, and very cruel punishments. Former students, describe being taken to a small white building known as the White House, where guards whipped them until, they were leaking, of red liquid, which we know what that is. Sometimes until they actually lost consciousness. Now, some boys never came out at all. When the state finally investigated in the 2000s, they discovered a secret graveyard. Dozens of unmarked graves held the remains of boys who had disappeared. Many were never identified. Their families never told the truth, so we don't know who these boys are. Today, the school remains, it stands as one of the darkest abandoned places in not only Florida, but all of America. Paranormal reports are overwhelming, disembodied voices, chains dragging across the ground, and cries in the distance. Some visitors claim they've been touched or even grabbed by invisible hands. EVP recordings capture chilling words like help and stop and please don't leave. Even skeptics admit the site feels very cursed. Investigators describe heavy, very oppressive air that grows worse near that whole, White House building. Cameras often pick up orbs as well, streaks of light and shadows moving where no one is even standing. I mean, survivors say it doesn't surprise them. The boys who passed away there never got any justice at all. So of course, their spirits may still be crying out for help. Stiltsville in Biscayne Bay. Now, in the middle of Biscayne Bay, 7 ghostly houses balance on wooden stilts above the water. Once, they were actually alive with illegal gambling, wild parties, and mafia connections, which sounds kind of fun, right? Not really. Today, they're silent ruins. Locals say the ghosts of Stiltsville haven't left. They're still there partying in the dark. Maybe we should go check it out. Stiltsville began in the 1930s as a hidden playground for the wealthy and the rich. Now, rumors spread of high-stakes poker games, secret deals, but also very violent disputes that ended, in you know what. By the 1950s, Stiltsville had grown into a thriving offshore village known as much for its lawlessness as its exclusivity. But nature had other plans, of course. Hurricanes repeatedly battered the houses, sweeping many into the sea, and by the 1990s, only a handful remained. Today, the skeletal remains of those houses rise eerily out of the bay. I mean, you can see them. Fishermen report strange lights flickering in the windows, even though no electricity runs through them at all. Boaters hear music drifting across the waves, jazz and swing tunes from an era long gone. I mean, they're still partying there. Some claim they've seen figures standing on the docks kind of waving, only to vanish as the boat draws closer. Paranormal investigators believe the energy of Stiltsville comes from the combination of its violent past and its watery graveyard of ruined homes. Some boats have reported being, chased down by glowing lights at night, as if something is still kind of guarding the bay there. The location is remote and isolated, which of course only adds to its ghostly aura. To this day, few dare to explore the houses after dark. So let me know, which abandoned place in Florida would you visit if you were brave enough? Let me know. Thanks for watching. I'm your host, Ashley. I'll see you later. These dark amusement parks are hiding more than just old rusty roller coasters. Nope, they're hiding pure evil, so let's take a look into them. Lake Shawnee Amusement Park. This is the playground of doom. A little girl in a bright pink dress was riding her favorite attraction, the simple spinning, swing set when tragedy struck. She was laughing one moment, and the next she was crushed by a delivery truck that backed into the ride while it was still in motion. Witnesses claimed her body flew several feet before collapsing to the ground. She was only one of at least 6 people who passed away at Lake Shawnee Amusement Park in Princeton, West Virginia, a place so cursed that locals now call it the Playground of Doom. But here's the chilling part. This land was doomed long before the rides were even built. In the late 1700s, it was the site of a very bad annihilation where a Native American tribe basically unalived a settler family for stealing their land.